With the Dead Island franchise being over 14 years old and Dead Island 3 set to release in 2027, we thought that it would be a fun idea to go back to where it all began. What's up? If you are one of the 5 people that watch our videos and you're confused why this isn't another Overwatch video, then you should watch the end part, where I made a little channel update. In 2006, a little Polish studio that gave us the Call of Juarez series and some other shit, well, they announced their new upcoming zombie game. Leaks and interviews with the developers painted a picture of a grounded and gritty zombie survival horror with RPG mechanics. The release was scheduled for 2008, but it was delayed indefinitely. Between 2008 and 2010, there was a complete radio silence, which led to speculation that maybe the game was dead, or even worse, stuck in development hell. Whereas in 2006, people were quite excited at the prospect of playing a new zombie game. By 2011, the entertainment media, and games especially, were oversaturated with zombies. So Dead Island needed something huge to break through and distinguish itself from the competition. In February 2011, the world was blessed with this masterpiece of a trailer. It depicted a family of 3 on a vacation in a luxury hotel, fighting for their lives during a zombie outbreak. But what made it stand out, you may ask? It featured a little girl that gets bitten and succumbs to the virus. Within minutes, she attacks her own parents, then gets thrown out of the window and fucking dies. Also, the whole thing was in slow motion, and the chronological order of events was inverted. The fact that we, as a viewer, knew what comes next for the happy, unsuspecting family only added to the tragedy and emotional impact of the scene. Somber and melancholic music kept the tone grounded and reminiscent of something like The Walking Dead, which was still arguably in its prime at the time. In June of 2011, during the E3, some actual gameplay was revealed and it looked nothing like what we just saw. It featured a fragment of the game's intro with the iconic snippets of other cutscenes and some action-oriented gameplay. Slashing zombies, shooting zombies, exploding zombies, all that's cool in itself. The real problem is the stark contrast between the raw emotion of the CGI trailer that pull on our heartstrings and the voodoo, let's go to shit. The CGI trailer was handled by an external VFX studio, Access Animation, who clearly haven't seen the game they were supposed to promote. It wouldn't surprise me if they were just given a checklist that looked something like this: vacation, nice hotel, humans in distress, hungry zombies, melee weapons, and make it emotional, cause why the fuck not? And put a kid in there. Even before the game came out, the identity crisis of Dead Island was apparent. Just take a look at the last shot of the gameplay trailer. Almost as if they couldn't decide if they wanted to have over-the-top action or more grounded emotional story. Despite all of that, approaching the September 6th release date, people were genuinely excited to find out more about the game. What weapons you can craft, day and night cycle, there isn't one, and if you will be able to kill zombie children.
Is there any reason that you took children out of the game and there's no children? Is that something that maybe Square Enix or Deep Silver just decided against?
Well, that I don't really know. I'm assuming that it's just probably not cool to beat up little kids in a game.
When the game actually came out, it was met with mostly warm reception from players and critics alike. Graphics were alright for the time, but the game was struggling with an abundance of glitches and technical difficulties. Obviously, it had a little in common with the CGI trailer, but also, it was way different from the earlier version we saw in the leaks. It certainly wasn't as story focused as we thought it would be. Co-op was introduced somewhere in the later stages of the development. RPG elements were reduced to leveling up your skill tree and doing repetitive fetch quests for NPCs. In the early builds, the game even was supposed to feature a reputation system, where depending on your choices, you could gain advantages from helping certain survivor camps. Even the gore looked different than we saw earlier. Hindsight 2020, the creative shift of direction and the tone inconsistencies of Dead Island were probably caused by friction between the publisher and the developers. Is it just me, or these screenshots kinda look like the mixture of the Left 4 Dead and Far Cry 2? In February 2012, they added a DLC campaign with a new character. It was dog shit. More on that later in the video. By 2013, the game sold over 5 million copies. In April, to keep the cash train rolling, Techland released Dead Island Riptide. This was basically an expansion that treated itself like a new game. Fucking dumbass. In its defense, it wasn't full price on release, But that didn't make it any less disappointing. It wasn't a continuation players hoped for, but it was still the one they got. It was created in a little over a year, and it introduced a new playable character, new weapons, maps, drivable boats, new zombies, and hub defense missions, while continuing the story. Such a short development cycle meant a lot of reused assets and very little innovation. So Riptide is basically a microwave Dead Island, more of the same for better or for worse. It tastes alright, but you can tell it's not fresh. That also marked the point where Techland split ways with their publisher Deep Silver. They've had too little creative control over what they were making and decided that they had enough of their shit and started working on their own zombie game, Dying Light, which is virtually better in every possible way. But before Techland could go their own way, they had to finish Riptide. In 2014, a different studio, Fat Shark, published Escape Dead Island under the publishing of Deep Silver. This thing was somehow even worse, and I would love to take it apart. But that's for another video. In December 2014, Dead Island Epidemic came out, also developed by another studio. I don't know who this was for, but I do know it flopped, and a year later the servers were shut down. In 2016, the definitive collection was released. This includes the original game, the Shit-Tide spin-off, and a bonus side-scroller. Yeah, we don't talk about that, who cares. Anyway, most notably, the graphics received a huge upgrade, and some of the bugs that plagued the original were patched. The original versions are not available on Steam anymore, and if you want to play Dead Island today, the definitive collection is definitely the way to go. After Techland's departure, it was clear Deep Silver had no idea what to do with Dead Island IP. Dead Island 2 was stuck in development hell, and was getting passed around to different studios, only to come out years later. Do you know what this timeline is missing? What was the genius plan? A fucking mobile game. That's right. In 2018, yet another studio released Dead Island Survivors. All I can say is that it was a tower defense game, and I want nothing to do with it. A game you play while shitting turned out to be shit.
Ironic.
This timeline showcases how badly the publishers had no idea what to do with a reasonably successful IP and opted for quick cheap cash grabs which inevitably failed. Getting back to the marketing of the original Dead Island back in 2011, here's the different editions I found. Red Edition featured a steelbook, bloodstained bag and towel and some other shit. By the way, the towel was covered in blood only from one side, which is kinda disappointing. There was this Treasure Edition which featured a wooden box, a black polo shirt, comic book and a poster. Here is what the collector's edition looked like. In these pictures it is even the Polish version. From what I see, there was a keychain, a bottle, a flashlight, a bag, a whistle, polo shirt, binoculars, a medkit, glow sticks, a pocket knife, a poster and this door handle thing. Like gamers ever gonna need all this? They rarely leave the house anyway. All that's great. These editions fit the theme of the game, with all the references to traveling, vacation, survival and of course zombies. Also they released a special edition comic book in collaboration with Marvel. Later, the remastered definitive collection also received a slaughter pack. It featured a poster, both games, and a popcorn zombie suicide bomber figure, along with a corpse grinder? Yeah, not this one. I think these were supposed to be either a reference to the other shit games under Dead Island IP, or these are just repurposed designs from the unreleased versions of Dead Island 2, which was going through a development hell at the time. Microphone ran out. It's done. It was black. I like black. Well, you begin by choosing one of 4 characters. Of course, there's a white fuckboy, sexist woman with trauma, vulnerable Asian, cool black dude, tough army guy, and this retard. Logan was voted the sexiest Texan in 2004. His promising football career came to a halt when he suffered a knee injury and killed a woman in a DUI accident. After leaving prison, he came to Banoi to escape from his past and find some peace. Well, that didn't really work out, now did it? He specializes in throwable weapons, which is quite shit. We'll get to why that is in a moment. Purna, a former police officer from Sydney who lost her career after taking justice into her own hands and shooting a millionaire child molester. Now she serves as a bodyguard for the rich scumbags, and as you could have guessed, she's not too happy about it. Just like her police background would suggest, she specializes in firearms. Xian is a Chinese agent, spying on the Westerners staying at the Royal Palms Resort. I don't know what she's hoping to find out here, since these rich bastards probably just bank hookers and snort coke. She also specializes in sharp weapons, because she's Asian? Last but not least, Sam B, a one-hit wonder rapper, mostly only known for his hit song. He came to Banoi to try and keep his music career alive. Also, all of them have short voice origin stories you can listen to on the select screen.
But all they want me to do is, who do you voodoo, bitch?
Since this channel is a two-man operation, we played through this game in co-op, and I advise you to not approach this game if you don't have at least one friend to play it with. We wanted to play into the characters' differences as much as possible and to see how much the character choice matters. So we picked Sam B, a blunt weapon expert who will act as our tank. He will brawl with enemies and distract them from our DPS in the backline. Purna will be dishing out damage from a distance using her guns. As you can see, they also have slightly different stats, but it really doesn't make much of a difference. The perks in the skill tree are what actually counts.
Me. Sam B.
The game starts out strong with an intro viewed from a first-person perspective of some nameless drunk hotel guest. We can see this guy stumbling all over the resort and bumping into the playable characters by accident. Logan is of course drunk at the bar, acting like an asshole with an enormous ego. Sam B is performing live. He flips our guy off before shoving him off the stage. Then Purna Jackson comes around and puts him in his place by landing a devastating kick in the balls. We witness the first signs of the carnage which is about to unfold when the security guy gets straight up mounted by a zombie chewing right into his neck. Our drunk moron doesn't think much of it and heads back to the hotel. He makes a stop at the women's bathroom where Xian can be seen attending to an unconscious hotel guest who is about to turn into a zombie. Our guy helps himself with some pills off the floor and passes out in his room. In the morning of the following day, you wake up in the same room as the character you choose to play as. Does this supposed to imply that my character has slept with this drunk? Anyway, the intro is unironically pretty great and fits the bombastic tone of the game. That's if you ignore the sad trailer we discussed earlier. What's actually tragic is the fact that this intro and the select screen together contain more character development for these four people than the rest of the game. Despite seeing these characters only for a brief moment, they are found in situations that tell us something about them, and even their reactions to the wasted protagonist fit what we found out about them on the select screen. Keep in mind that I'm only reviewing the definitive edition with the updated graphics, so some things may be different from the original. This game runs great even on older systems like ours. You can alt-tab all you want. And from what I recall, we have encountered zero crashes. Already discussed playable characters look memorable, I will give them that. Some cosplayers even went out of their way to dress like them, and I can see why. Their outfits and backstory make them quite unique, which contrasts with how generic the rest of the game really is. However, what undermines their uniqueness are definitely the face animations, or rather lack thereof. And the horrendous writing, which we will discuss later. I'm sorry, but they've butchered Purna's looks so bad. She's supposed to be hot and tough, and in this game she's even of a different ethnicity than her concept art. All these cutscenes just smell of the 2000s early motion capture junk, but it has a certain charm to it. The graphical fidelity is also still stuck in 2011, that in combination with improved lighting creates an uncanny look. But if you don't look too close at the models, the game still looks decent even today.
No, 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 no!
If you played an older RPG, like maybe Fallout 3, and you thought to yourself, damn it, some of these NPCs look kinda similar to each other, are they related? Alright, they share the same model, just with different haircut, no big deal. Wait till you see what is going on in that island. Everywhere you look you will see the same dude, but maybe this time he will have glasses or his shirt will be a different color. Or he will have a Slavic accent this time, or god forbid he is black. Of course, the same goes for women and zombie models. The visual design of zombies is also rather underwhelming, especially if you compare it to something like Left 4 Dead, which came out 3 years prior. The first 3 enemy types you encounter look basically the same. The only difference is that one walks, one runs at you while screaming, and one just kinda stands there menacingly.
Fuck you!
The rest of the enemy roster is slightly better. Ram, not to be confused with Ramatra, is an absolute unit. Rocking a straitjacket and even that won't prevent him from clobbering your ass. The floater has multiple chins and vomits acid. I wonder where I've seen this before. And the butcher is actually interesting. This crazy psycho can be encountered only in the late game. He uses his exposed bones to stab you. This is unhinged and I like it. They've also put a cool twist on the suicide bomber. If you listen closely, you will hear that he's actually calling for help. Kinda like the zombies in Half-Life did it back in the day. However, despite obviously raising character models for NPCs and zombies, their outfits do actually fit the environment you find them in. At the resort you will find chicks in bikini, in the slums you will find poor peasants, around the lab you will find scientists, in the prison you will find prisoners and guards, and in the jungle you will find locals with their butts half naked. Alright, I think you already get the point. It's just a shame that there are no hotel clerics in the resort. There was even one in the trailer. The whole game takes place on 3 major maps and a few smaller closed areas. The best thing about this game's presentation is actually the opening area. And I don't mean the prologue inside the hotel, but rather what comes after.
Look at that motherfucking view, man.
It's bloody beautiful, isn't it?
Looking like a motherfucking postcard.
The first map and the vibe it creates easily carry the whole game. I love how these clean shiny pools and sunny beaches contrast with skinned dismembered corpse soaking in blood.
Bloody hell!
Many little details and environmental storytelling gives us an additional reason to explore, other than just completing mission objectives. I can recognize that a lot of care and attention went into creating this environment. There are areas which serve different purposes and look different one from another. The whole thing just seems like it was thought through. You got roads and gas stations on the west side, which encourage vehicular travel. There's a lighthouse and the hotel itself, which is massive. It has its own lobby. Damn, check out this lighting. And yes, it was before ray tracing, if you couldn't tell. And interior, which you will explore on multiple occasions. As we continue towards the coast, we encounter these bungalows with bars and pools. Going down the stairs, we reach the beautiful beach. Out on the water, there's even a gazebo complex, so there's always something different to look at. This environment is memorable even if you play this game today, after all these years. Also, what makes it unique is the fact that the zombie outbreak just happened. So everything is not overgrown or destroyed, like you would expect during a zombie apocalypse. Most of the buildings and infrastructure are in relatively good shape, which again is what makes it different from other zombie games. This was especially important back in 2011, when 90% of new games featured a piece and shit core palette.
I never asked for this.
The first map of that island also features old World War II bunkers used by Japanese during their struggle against Americans in the Pacific. What's also cool, there's a hidden Horde mode arena in one of them, which was a part of the Bloodbath Arena DLC. As you progress through the main story, the game will lead you to the next area. Everything positive that I just said about the first map, well, it doesn't apply here. Color palette? Well, that's where the shit hits the fan. This map features significantly less detail and feels rushed compared to the resort. Almost as if they burned through the budget after the first one. Side alleys don't hide anything worth of your attention other than packs of bandits, who seem to have a strict dress code, by the way. The streets are jammed by the burning wrecks, which makes sense considering the situation. So that means a lot of running. So you'll be looking at these brown buildings a lot. Simple trash and rubble textures are not that interesting to look at, believe it or not. As you explore, you can find spots that are straight up unfinished. Also what's weird, the quests will just casually lead you to them. This on side quest had me climbing ladders to repair speakers on rooftops. And the next thing you know, I was in one of those places, nearly clipped through into the backrooms. No żeż kurwa! I guess this map makes sense as a progression of the story and gameplay. Just as our heroes encounter more deadly mutations of zombies, so does the environment become more harsh and unwelcoming. But it's just too big of a downgrade in my opinion, and this map is just a slog to navigate through.
Time to die, mate!
The map features some memorable set pieces, like the church, collapsed bridge and a quarantine zone, which provides at least some environmental storytelling. Besides that, there are a few smaller areas where the story will take you, like the supermarket and the police station. And don't even get me started on the sewers section. Fuck that place. But all of these are separated by a loading screen in true Bethesda style. The slums also reminded me of Dying Light for obvious reasons. But what especially made it familiar are the burning cars on the street, and the backdrop with lots of film grain, which gave it a unique VHS-like appearance. That probably has something to do with the fact that they used a similar version of the Chrome engine while both remastering Dead Island and developing Dying Light. After leaving slums, the story will take us into the jungle. After suffering through the slums, sewers and the police station, this map felt like a breath of fresh air. Technically, this map features different locations, like the laboratory, the tribal village or the plane crash site. However, all these locations are lacking a memorable set piece, or something to just make them stand out. There are a lot of empty areas, and it feels rushed, even more so than the slums. It's bigger than other maps, so you are expected to use a car to travel. But in reality, these jungle roads are just empty corridors for you to drive through to get to the next objective. And despite the change of colors, it still gets real boring real fast. Instead of grey and brown, now we have green and brown. Backdrop was nice to look at, I will give them that much. Makes you think about Crysis or the OG Far Cry. Other than that, I'm struggling to come up with things to even say about this map. And more than anything, I think that shows how forgettable it really is. I genuinely believe that Dead Island would be better off if the whole game took place in the resort. Then they could have made it bigger and even more detailed. And that Rising already proved that a zombie game taking place in a single location can work. Killing zombies is certainly the highlight of every Dead Island playthrough. You can dismember them in a satisfying way using sharp weapons. If a zombie loses both of its arms, it will just try to bite you. Blunt weapons won't cut off anything. However, they pack a punch, so you will be able to stun zombies or just straight up send them flying. Bashing their head in is also fun. As you know, blunt weapons are some beast's specialty, so naturally his ultimate just enhances your ability to punch people to death. As a weapon wears down, it will physically bend and break to remind you that you need to repair it.
This piece of shit falling apart.
Weapons also have different striking ranges. A katana or a baseball bat will be able to hit enemies further away than a small knife or a pair of brass knuckles. In the case of smaller knives, they were meant to be mainly used as throwable weapons, which are Logan's specialty. But I haven't played as him, so I won't speak out whether he is good or not. Also, it uses autolock, which sometimes makes it difficult to hit the thing you actually want to hit. Throwing also deals significantly more damage than normal attacks. However, due to buggy nature of this game, you risk losing the weapon entirely. Sometimes it will just vanish, which makes throwing upgraded weapons completely not viable. And this brings us to the other big selling point of this game. The crafting system. You can upgrade and repair weapons for money at every workbench. This way you can improve the weapon's durability and raw stats. In order to upgrade weapons further, you need to acquire blueprints. Modifications require some components like duct tape, batteries, alcohol or wires. Once crafted, it will give the weapon elemental effects. Fire, shock or poison damage depending on your choice. However, even modified versions look rather boring for the most part. You can also craft deodorant grenades and Molotov cocktails, which are ideal for decimating packs of enemies. I especially like how fire affects them. You can see flesh chipping away from the individual body parts.
God damn! That bitch was huge!
The special zombie types, however, do not feature dismemberment or anything while you kill them. They just fall over. So hitting zombies is satisfying. But you know what isn't? Everything else! The game doesn't have a designated dodge or block mechanic. The best you can do is jump to the side or backwards in an attempt to avoid taking damage. This is really awkward and it's not something you can rely on most of the time, because sometimes zombies will miss their attacks if you just simply move away, and other times they will throw themselves at you, forcing you into a quick time event. Annoying bullshit aside, the game gets stale real fast for a number of reasons. The progression is one of them, and it leaves a lot to be desired, unfortunately. Your character becomes more powerful by completing quests, killing zombies and looting. This way you will gain the necessary cash and XP to progress. However, said progress seems artificial because weapons and enemies don't change enough to significantly impact the gameplay. Sure, the game introduces a couple new enemy types later, but they don't require you to change your tactics for the most part. Literally, all enemies just run up to you so you can mindlessly exchange blows. The only enemies that force you to adapt in any way are suiciders, bandits with firearms, and ram, which can only be damaged from behind. How exciting. The other thing is, if you level up, so does the whole world. Great, you leveled up. Now we will increase the damage of weapons you find in the shop. But guess what? We will also increase every zombie's health bar. This results in combat feeling mostly the same throughout the whole game, with its only redeeming qualities being the dismemberment and weapon elemental effects. Earning cash and components for these upgrades is not exactly fun either. However, the addition of trading stuff between players is awesome. The other aspect of progression is of course the skill tree, and they didn't exactly try to reinvent the wheel here either. With every level up you receive a skill point, and each character has slightly different perks. Some of them are unique to the character, but perks are mostly the same, just in different order. The whole thing is kind of a mixed bag. Unfortunately, most of the perks just increase the numbers, but there are a few exceptions to this. What I found especially infuriating is how slow the character moves. Movement feels floaty, kinda like the first person mode in GTA 5, but way slower. Xian has a perk that solves this, by giving her a speed boost, so that's nice. I played as Sambi, and he also has some cool gameplay altering perks. This game doesn't feature a lockpicking minigame, instead we do this. This feels really awkward and it gets annoying after a couple of times. But it fits the tone of the game, or at least the loud and bombastic side of it. Anyway, Sambi has a special move which allows him to ram through enemies, knocking them over.
Damn!
This also allows you to skip the mentioned minigame entirely and just bash the door open. I also liked the perk which pulled all aggro on me. Zombies were just ignoring Purna altogether most of the time. And since Sambi is significantly more resistant to damage, he made for an excellent tank. Our second choice, Purna, specializes in firearms. So a big chunk of her combat skill tree is dedicated to reload speed, bullet penetration, headshot critical damage and that sort of things. Now check this out. That island takes around 16 hours to complete. The first 40% or so takes place in the resort. You get your first gun and ammo for it around the time you reach the slums. So for the first 6 hours or so, Purna has no access to guns. Explain this to me, retard. To be fair, her ultimate ability gives her a revolver with aimbot that deals massive damage. But still, playing as Purna in the early game, you'll feel useless. And even when you reach the point where guns are easy to come by, the gunplay feels like absolute dogshit. Shooting feels like it would belong in a mobile game. The selection of guns is also generic and modifying them only adds this little muzzle brake or something. You can't disable the aim assist, so you're never in control, even though I'm playing on a PC using a fucking mouse. Okay. Shootouts with the brained NPCs are nothing to write home about either. Shotgun sometimes deals massive damage, but is inconsistent as hell. Is there something else I should talk about? Yeah, the story section. I guess now it seems like I'm treating it like an afterthought, but let's be honest, so do the developers of this game. You've already heard me praise the intro of this game earlier in the video, so after that the massive party is over, the night has passed and you wake up in the hotel room with a hangover. This is the only place in the whole game where I felt any kind of tension or horror atmosphere.
This is Hotel Emergency Broadcast System. Please leave your apartment immediately. Follow signs to the nearest...
Some mysterious voice on the radio guides you through the hotel, to then get jumped by zombies in scripted cutscene anyway. Surprisingly, you're not dead, and it turns out our 4 characters are the only ones immune to the virus. How convenient.
Zdrowaś Mario, łaski pełna Pan z Tobą, błogosławionaś Ty między niewiastami i błogosławiony owoc żywota Twojego Jezus. Święta Mario, Matko Boża, módl się za nami grzesznymi, Teraz się wchodzi.
Since this lifeguard named Johnson Moy somehow saved our ass off screen, now we owe him, so he becomes our early quest hub guy. We helped him and other survivors establish a safe zone inside the lifeguard tower and lighthouse. Most of the stuff you do here are fetch quests from irrelevant NPCs who are basically talking vending machines. But the assignments you are given make sense considering the situation. People still try to get a grasp on what's going on, so you just collect supplies, find their family members, just help them however you can. Getting access to drivable cars was certainly a highlight of this playthrough, and we just had to stress test the vehicle physics.
This is crazy. About a hand over here. Shit, man. You see that? Can't hold on much longer, man. I need some fucking help. Don't let me die like this. No, no, no. Ah! 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 Oh my God! God damn!
Anyway, the first act is all around pretty chill, so you'll be just running around and taking in the beautiful scenery.
I'm asleep on my bloody feet.
Our crew tries to follow up on the mysterious voice on the radio who offers a way out of this island, and that leads us to... With this being our only lead, we acquire a big ass truck from the whole parking lot and head to the local mechanic. That's where the dumb bitch, I mean Jean, gets introduced. She's a daughter of the mentioned mechanic that promised to pimp our ride. Like I said way back in the beginning of the video, playable characters don't get any character development whatsoever. Instead, Jean gets introduced. After a few tailing missions and stiff cutscenes, we are supposed to be invested in what she's going through. Of course, it later turns out that he was bit and she has to put him down. The whole thing is really clashing with the tone of the rest of the game, just like the trailer did. Anyway, we reach the slums using our new armored truck. There we meet Mother Helen, a church leader, and that's where the story falls off the wagon, if you will. There is this kind of spiritual undertone here, faith in God against the human extinction, but it doesn't go anywhere, so let's leave it at that. After an excellent setup in the resort with a unique zombie apocalypse on vacation setting, and an intrigue with a mysterious voice on the radio, promising to help and warning us about the imminent threat of military nuking the whole island. Shit is serious, that's what I'm getting at. Now we get sentenced to a couple hours of unrelevant side quests on an ugly map that is a pain in the ass to navigate through. As far as the relevant quests go, you go to the police station to negotiate sharing supplies with the other survivors at the church. Jean decided to take the truck and go by herself and try to reason with the corrupt policeman at the station. Anyway, Jean gets taken hostage off screen, and when we finally rescue her, it's heavily implied that she was molested. Sam B and Logan at this point suggest that they would probably be better off without her, and I can't blame them, to be honest. Purna and Shan provide some emotional support, so that's at least something. But other than that, it doesn't go anywhere. No emotional payoff. Nothing. The group never talks about what happened at the police station again. If anything deserves a cutscene, it was this. Act 3 takes place in the jungle, and here I felt like we were finally back to handling stuff that really matters. A little much, in fact. This part just turned into a lore dump. Some smuggler that looks like Bob Marley helps us reach the lab, where we meet scientists that are experimenting on infected natives. And as it turns out, the virus came from a mutated strain of a native parasite. The story tries to merge science and mystical tribal lore, but yet again, it doesn't go anywhere. We pay a visit to the local village to find out more about their rituals and collect some samples while we are at it. Bob Marley was in trouble, so we threw him a grenade. We also pick up Yerema along the way. Her blood supposedly can be used to make a cure for the virus. Why her in particular? Reasons. Of course, the creepy scientist tries to use her for himself and locks her up. Guess who had to go there and save her ass? After that, the whole lab gets overrun and we have to move on. Well, we got the vaccine, so the visit to the laboratory was good for something at least. I usually don't mind a little lore dump, especially when it comes to explaining the origin of a zombie virus. But here they have managed to make it boring, and at times I felt like I missed something crucial to the story. But that's just the way it was told. You're being told things and yet you still feel like you haven't found out anything. An incoherent mess altogether. So far we had a decent setup in Act 1, irrelevant bullshit in Act 2, a science lore dump in Act 3, and Act 4 takes us to prison and it feels rushed and abrupt, since the story had to wrap itself up somehow before the game ends. Right? This guy on the radio told us that he's a military official and that he has a helicopter that can get us out of this island. Following his instructions, we make our way to the prison, which is also overrun. We do some quests for the prisoners. Yeah, whatever, this was pretty boring. Then we get cast in the elevator and pass out. When we wake up, this Kevin guy shows up and blames everything on the general, who supposedly took the vaccine from us and plans to leave the island by himself. By the time we reach the top, General Ryder White is of course already on the roof. He summons a few waves of zombies and armed henchmen in hope of slowing us down. When we finally confront him, he admits that he wants the cure for himself to bring back his mutated wife. Being held at gunpoint, our characters just kinda stand there and do nothing. Jean takes upon herself to handle the situation.
Son of a bitch, shit!
Ryder clips her ass in panic, to then inject himself with the vaccine that turned him into a Resident Evil boss fight. We absolutely demolished him, by the way.
How you like that? Booyah! Stay down, asshole!
Our characters have no emotional reaction to Ryder's betrayal or Jean's death. So we just board the helicopter and fly off into the sunset. This leaves things pretty open-ended, and it doesn't explain much at all. I suppose that was their way of convincing players to buy Dead Island Riptide. At least Jean is dead. I was worried she would make it to the next game. Can you imagine? But there's also a DLC about the evil General Ryder White. It is just a mission that takes around an hour to complete, and in terms of gameplay it introduces absolutely nothing new. Just another hour of shooting zombies. And no co-op, sadly. It shows us the Raider's point of view, and it tries to do this bad guy is not all evil thing. It shows how Sharon, aka Kevin, manipulated a desperate general into confrontation with the playable characters. We see how Raider gassed the elevator and how he took the vaccine, all in false hope of saving his infected wife. With this DLC, we as a player finally find out that the great mastermind villain of this story was actually Kevin. It turns out he was even conspiring with the creepy scientist that wanted Yerma's blood for the vaccine. In the base game, it was maybe foreshadowed a little bit, so we could have some suspicions. But it wasn't fully explained until the DLC, and even then the twist fell flat, because Kevin as the voice on the radio appeared at the beginning, to later be absent throughout the rest of the game, to only re-emerge at the end when the story needed to wrap itself up. We don't know anything about the villain, and there was next to no build-up. Oh, and our playable characters are still unaware that they flew off with the actual bad guy. This attempt at wrapping up the story is rather vague and messy, but it was probably done to some extent on purpose to be continued in the Riptide sequel. You may get the impression that I completely disregard this game as being a worthwhile experience, simply by measuring the amount of me bitching about how mediocre many aspects of it are. If you dissect the game into pieces and examine them separately, you probably will come to the same conclusion. And yet, I'm willing to recommend that you play this game. Why the fuck would I do that? My answer is... call. If you play this game with at least one person, I think it's worth it. And it's incredible to me, because this game is really mid if you think about it. Movement and combat are junky. Story is an afterthought. Progression is meh. I could go on and go on. But at the end, all these pieces come together and create something, dare I say, fun. While being mediocre at best, these parts are just good enough to not be distracting or unbearable. So yeah, if you got from 1 to 3 people to play with, I think you should give this game a chance. Thanks for making it so far into the video and or caring enough to see our little channel update at the end. This upload was probably a surprise to all my fellow Overwatch lore enjoyers that are currently subscribed, all 5 of you. But I've got to level with you guys. Neither me nor my editor have enjoyed playing Overwatch 2 in quite some time. Last time we actually played was when they added the Stadium game mode. Overwatch 2 as a game is arguably in a better place than ever. Most of the changes Blizzard makes seem in line with community's feedback. Looks like they are even stepping up their lore game with characters like Freya and Vendetta. So my point is, we are burned out. It's not really the game's fault, but ours. We decided to move on and expand in order to do something that we are passionate about, because at the end of the day, that's kinda the point of this channel. So, are we done with Overwatch content entirely? We are still not entirely sure, but this will certainly take a back seat, so we can mainly focus on these video essays, reviews, shitposts, whatever this is. The gameplay you are seeing in the background is a little foreshadowing of what the next video is going to be about. I will be grateful for those of you that are willing to join me in the new chapter of this channel. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one, shitters!